Hello, it's video reaction number 6, aka the last one. I said that about the previous one because I thought it was the last one, but there is a secret sixth option, so I have. This is actually the last one, for real, for real. Let's get into it. Week 15 material. We got the last couple of chapters of Ania Silver's work that I want to talk about, so let's get into this. Number 1. Well, I guess 10, because chapter 10, the racism in pandemic times. Let's talk about it. For me, COVID was an interesting time. I was a sophomore in high school, and because of that, um, it didn't really affect me. I didn't miss any like huge milestones or anything. I didn't miss like graduation or prom or blah blah blah. Nor did I have any family members that I had family members that got sick, but no one that severely got sick and passed away. So in the grand scheme of things, I was really, really fortunate, really lucky to kind of just go through that period in history. A lot of people who probably think back to COVID probably have really bad memories where awful things happened to them or their family. I never got COVID. No one I knew passed away from COVID, so I was really fortunate. So for me, I just sat around all day and played video games with my friends, and that was about a year of my life, was sitting in my room on my PlayStation playing a whole bunch of games when I should have been doing homework, but it was during COVID. So dude, if ChatGPT existed back then, oh my god, it'd be even easier. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. We're here to talk about racism, specifically how the pandemic didn't create. In some ways, the pandemic bolstered some racism with attitudes towards Asians specifically, but for like the more context of this book, that it didn't more so create racism, but exposed the systemic slash institutional racism that we have in this country. And yeah, black the book talks about how black, Latinos, and the indigenous populations were more so affected in negative ways by the pandemic than other groups. They had higher infection rates, higher death rates. The job loss that was created by the pandemic more so affected them than any other group. And then due to the fact that those groups tend to be less fortunate when it comes to economic status and job status and class and all that, they have in general less access to healthcare, which in general is bad, but especially when there's a global pandemic and all the hospitals are full and everything's crazy when it comes to the medical world. Not having great access to healthcare is honestly the difference between life and death, and that's one of the reasons why the infection rates and the mortality rates are so high for these groups. And just reading through it, it was really eye-opening. It was kind of hard to read because it really highlights how different people, like the event COVID is the same, but it affects people very disproportionately. Because me, I just skated through that playing video games, but these people who are less fortunate than me, it was an awful time that they had to go through. So it really made me appreciate the position I have in life and what I do have. And yeah, just awful stuff. Like I said, how color blind racism hides these like structural racisms that the many Americans explained pandemic inequalities using very colorblind racist remarks, such as, oh, like they're disproportionately affected due to poor lifestyle choices or unhealthy lifestyle choices or cultural issues that they got going on, instead of being like, a lot of Americans, instead of realizing that there's systemic issues, they more so put the blame on the person being affected, even though it's not that person's fault. And like as the book kind of touches on it, but just how during that time there was a lot of Asian hate in general, because it originated in China and whatnot, and so some people really took that and ran with it and kind of used like Asians as a scapegoat, like they were the whole reason that this thing happened, and it wasn't just a terrible accident, but that it would be the Asians' fault or not, which is crazy. But the last thing I want to talk about, the chapter that stuck with me, was how Benia Silva criticized the popular slogan at the time of, you know, we're all in this together. I remember that during the pandemic, like seeing commercials and like whatnot, where, you know, the celebrities would come in and the celebrities are like, we're all in this together, and it's like, bullshit, we're all in this together. You're chilling in your freaking mansion, and if you get sick, you got like the best doctors in the world treating you. If some poor person gets sick, they're just dead, you know. So no, we're not all in this together because we're not all in it equally. And he really does criticize that. And I think that is a great thing to criticize, because when you're like, oh, we're all in this together, it lessens the issues that some people are going through. It's like the Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter thing, or during the Black Lives Matter movement, there was like, oh, well, all lives matter. And it's like, yeah, you're not wrong, but at the same time, like right now, the focus is on the issues regarding, you know, the African American population and the inequalities they go through. That's what we're focusing on. We're not saying all lives don't matter. It's just that's the current focus right now, because, you know, there's some tragedy that happened. So overall, a pretty good chapter. Actually, I learned a lot. More so, I feel like, from that chapter than compared to some other chapters. Who's texting me? Get away. I don't want to talk to you right now. Now, wait. Sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes right now. And then, for the last chapter. Now, I'm going to be completely honest and forthcoming. When I started this book in the beginning of the semester, and I read, you know, through that first chapter where he's talking about colorblind racism, I really sat there and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get behind this, because, you know, it's something I never heard before or seen before or thought about before. So the whole, like, you're racist without knowing you're racist type of thing, like you're racist even though you don't overtly do racist things or have racist thoughts, or, you know, but because you participate in the system, you perpetuate racism, therefore you're racist. I remember reading that at the beginning and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to agree with this. But credit where credit's due, he made a fantastic book. You really, throughout the chapters, he does a great job at, you know, explaining things, using stories, using statistics, the whole 9 yards, you know, you put up. Because that was my thoughts in the beginning, but after finishing the book, I was like, no, yeah, I 100% get it. I went from skeptical that I was gonna fully agree with some of his things, to now on the other side, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I 100% that, you know, racism is systemic. It's not just an individual prejudice at this point, but that racism is, you know, built in institutions and social practices, things like that. Like, I never thought about that before. I never knew these things existed. So I really, just in general, the book really opened my eyes. And so reading through this last chapter, he just kind of reiterates a lot of things and kind of highlights, you know, the main points of the book. I just realized that, you know, over time, after reading the book, that I went from skeptical to understanding and agreeing. And I just think that reinforces the whole thing with, in order to make a change, you got to understand that there's an issue. See, previously, I didn't know there was an issue, but after reading this book, going through the class, I now know there's an issue. And, you know, hopefully, as I grow up and enter the working fields and yada yada yada, in the future, I can take what I've learned from the book and from the class and try to make a difference. You know, just don't adhere to the system, but as Benia Silva would say, you know, you gotta be anti-racist. Anyway, that's it for the last video. Yeah, have a good summer, have a good life. Later.